Hey everyone, so I finished another training today. It was another webinar that I signed up for through HRPA, and today's one was mental health for non-emergency situations in the workplace. And so basically I wanted to share some of the takeaways of what I learned. I took 2.5 pages of notes. They do give us the presentation, but I also make my own notes. And so today they were speaking to us and basically saying that they find most of the mental health cases in the workplace in Canada come from construction. And that's because the work here is sporadic in construction. If you are working on doing the building itself, and you can only do the work in the summertime, so that means that maybe like May, June, July, August, people are working, and then after that they don't have any work. And they're finding that that's a problem in the industry, so we have to find ways to get around that. And the return on investment for investing in mental health care, for every dollar you invest, you get a $4 return on investment. So it makes sense to make sure that you have the supports in place, like employee assistance programs, giving people time to adjust if they have a new medication, giving the time off, making sure they have sick days available that they can tap into if they need it. And there's still a stigma around mental health issues. So she had mentioned that some of the symptoms that we can look out for, and she provided a list like headaches, withdrawal, focusing on emotions, people using drugs and alcohol or substance abuse to cope with what they're dealing with. And physical health, maybe people are sleeping too much or they're not getting enough sleep, shortness of breath, dizziness, and often instead of dealing with it by seeing a doctor, people will turn to substances. So there's substance abuse. Things like isolation and withdrawal can also impact mental health. And the main area of concern in our workplaces in Canada that's causing burnout is that people have a high workload and they don't have enough supports in place. So that's one of the main causes here that she had talked about on this call. Resources are there, but sometimes they are not effective. And it's important to remember that the solutions provided by employers are short-term. So if there's a long-term need, that's dealt with through the family doctor. And when people come to a manager or a co-worker, if they have that support in place from a doctor, then the responsibility stops there. But if they want to get help, if they're coming to somebody, then they can be referred to EAP, they can be referred to counseling, they can be referred to a family doctor. And she provided 2 numbers that you can call in a crisis if somebody is suicidal, which we know about if you are in HR. One is 911 and the other one is 988 for the US and Canada. And sometimes people don't have access to doctors, so people are using things like Maple to get support in place. They're finding that we need at least $3,000 to cover mental health because people need at least that amount to get the sessions that they need, to get the time that they need. Anything less than that, it makes it hard. And not all companies have that available in their budgets. That's why people go to family doctors to get the referrals, because they will be able to refer people to the right places. And aside from that, she just talked about that we also need to mind our diet and exercise. And there's a lot of talk around that now because people turning to pills is not going to cure the problem. It's not going to solve the problem. Even big pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, it doesn't cure it. When we look at our exercise and our diet and we look at what we are doing to keep well, that's half the battle. And workloads, companies need to look at how can they give employees workloads that are fair and that it's not going to lead to people being burnt out. She also talked about the need to have some time to rest. So days where we do nothing, you watch TV the whole day or you go out into nature. Everybody needs time to rest, and I covered that from the other session that I did as well, where I took training. So the courses are available. She does offer training, and she provided us with her contact details, and if we want to learn more and get into doing it. But if we're not implementing support systems and not making our workplaces safe, then ultimately the team suffers, because it becomes about the safety of the individual as well as the safety of the team. And training is available in Canada on mental health supports. We also don't assume that people are completely isolated if they're working from home. So over COVID, a lot of us were working from home, but we were not isolated. So we had apps, we had Teams, we had Zoom, we had a variety of things where we could connect with people so that we were not completely isolated. Yes, you miss that face-to-face interaction, but many companies have taken people back to work. I was also working from the office when I went back to work at Teleperformance. So people have adjusted and people have moved on. COVID was a long time ago, and most people, I think aside from the government people, most people want to be in an office and they want to have hybrid roles, see their teammates, talk to people. So that's just like a basic synopsis of what we looked at today in our Lunch and Learn. And it's interesting. I mean, it's good to learn from other people. But I think for some of us who've been working a long time, we know these things because we've been dealing with them within operations, within our day-to-day roles. We know the resources that are available. But it's always good to hear what's happening in other parts of Canada and to learn, from other people. The main thing is that if you're going to go to a colleague or if you're going to go to your manager, they're not going to be there like just to listen to you. They're going to be there to say, okay, so what do you want me to do? How can I help? Because the ultimate aim is to make you productive. And if you are healthy, you can be more productive and you can meet your goals. That's the whole point of putting all these supports in place, because when you have the supports in place, you can achieve your goals, you can accomplish, you can help the team, you can help the company. It's not there like just to say we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. That's not the point of it. In any organization, whether it's a non-profit or whether it's a for-profit organization, and you might have some philanthropic organizations where they are willing to help people, to give people money. There are companies that do that. There are individuals that do that, where if people need that money and they don't have it, they give it to them. But within a company, it's usually budgeted. And the family doctor is always the first point of reference. Once the family doctor is involved, then the company can step back, because then the person has the supports in place. So that's what I did. It was quite a long session, and training is intensive. I mean, it's quite a lot to take in, and there's slides and things that we tap into. But I thought I'd just share it. It's also good if I share it, then I can see what did I learn and what will I pass on when I go back into the workplace. How will I use that in my day-to-day work? So that's what we covered today. And it's important to, note for ourselves what are changes in our behavior, in our thinking, in our mood that is impacting how we function. If you are somebody like me and you're journaling, or some companies have an app. So in the morning when you go in, you can tap into that and you can say how you're feeling today. that helps the company to track, where are the high points, where are the low points, where are people doing well in terms of their health. And that helps with productivity, and that leads to an increase in profitability. Because if people are not well, if people are sick, if the supports are not in place to help people perform well, then ultimately the company is going to suffer. So that's why the return on investment is for the benefit of not only the individual, but also for the company. So that's what I wanted to share today from the learning. And the good thing is that now they do send us the replay, so you can go back and you can watch the replay. Sometimes there's things you miss. Sometimes there's things that are not clear when you're listening to the call. And that's why it's good to be able to go back and to watch the videos, watch the replays, or listen to a call if it's a call. And that's how I do it. So when they send me the replays, sometimes I do it the next day, or I go back when I'm revisiting a topic, and then I look at it again. It's also good for me because some of this we cover when we're becoming spiritual directors, and you don't always have that time or that option to go back to Regis College to re-examine those, to revisit those. So for me, this is good because it helps me not only with my work in operations, but it also helps me with my work as a spiritual director. So it's worth paying the dues, and it's worth keeping it up to date, because then when you go back to work, when you're ready, you do apply it on the job.